Hey dolls! Today I'm going to be showing you dolls how I do my gel nails. First thing we're going to need is a dust mask. This just prevents the dust from getting into our lungs. Some nail tips, a nail drill, some nail bits, nail files, buffer, non-dust wipes, an alcohol bottle. This one just got a pump on it. I got this one from Amazon for like $8. A nail brush for your gel and your gel. A base coat, top coat, and a polish, all in gel. A clipper and a cuticle pusher. Mine is double-sided. First thing I do is I make sure that my nails, my tips, fit my nail perfectly. Then I take my nail clipper and I cut the bottom edge at an angle to make that nice and pointy since I'm going to be doing stilettos. First thing we do is prep, and this is how I prep. I wipe with some isopropyl alcohol just to get any of the oil that may be on my nail bed before pushing it back with my cuticle pusher. This step is just to lift my cuticle off of my nail bed before I go in with my drill and drill it off. So what I do is I take my smallest nail bit, which is a safety bit, just to get that nail cuticle off. I do this with a very light hand and very gently to be sure that I don't hurt my nails or my nail bed or my skin. This step usually gets a majority of that cuticle off, but whatever is left behind, I like to go back and get another drill bit, another safety bit, and get the rest of that cuticle off. Again, do this very gently. Then I take my buffer bit just to buff off any of the shine that's on my nail, but do this very, very gently because it will damage your nail beds if you do this with a hard hand. I leave my drill at a very low setting just to protect my nails as much as possible. We're only doing this step to make sure that that gel sticks perfectly onto the nail. Then I dust off any of that dust that may be there before moving on to the next step. This just ensures we don't get any dust into our gel. Then I push the rest of my cuticles back just to be sure that we have a nice blank slate to work on. Then I start prepping with some bonder. This is a Power Bond by IBD, and this just makes sure that that gel sticks. So if anyone is having problems with the lifting, then you should invest into some bonder before using your base coat, because this makes sure that gel sticks perfectly on there without lifting or peeling. So as you see here, I'm going in with my base coat, and I'm just doing this very tediously to make sure that that gel does not get anywhere on my skin, because if it does, then the next layer of gel that we put on will stick to that and will slide to that, and it will be stuck to your skin when you put it into the light. So this is just my way of avoiding it, being very, very careful with application. Then I take my gel brush and I clean it off before working with it. And then this is going to serve us as our nail glue. I use my hard gel as a nail glue. And this is just my way to make my nails last longer since I do not prefer crazy glue. So I take a small bead and I spin my brush around and I put that directly into the middle of that nail, and make sure not to get too much gel too close to the edges of the nail before pressing it onto my nail. And I do this step very gently, making sure not to get any bubbles and making sure that that gel does not bleed out onto my skin. Then I put it under the light for 30 seconds. Here I am showing you guys again. I'm dipping in, getting a nice bead, spinning that brush around and dipping it into the nail directly in the middle, closest to the top of the nail, but not touching that edge, because once we push that against our nail, it will definitely bleed out if we get too close. So here's what it should look like. Then we push that against our nail. And I'm shaking because I have anxiety, but that's okay. So a little bit of the gel did get out onto my nail, onto my skin, but that's fine because I'm going to be showing you guys how I get it off. So what I do is I take a little brush, one of my smallest brushes, and I dip that into alcohol, and I'm just wiping any of that extra gel off before putting it under the light. Make sure you don't have any bubbles and put that under the light. I went ahead and did all of my nails, and here I am just filing. If you guys want a more thorough video on how I file, then please state that in the comments. But basically what I do is I take my nail file and go in very aggressively at an angle to make sure I get that nice sharp point. I like to turn my nail towards me to make sure it's nice and straight, and they should end up looking like so. Then I take this nail bit, and whatever gel I missed that did seep out, I just make sure to get that off before moving on to my next step, like so. Remember, if there is any gel outside of your nail, the next layer of gel will stick to it and it will not look pretty at all. So just make sure that you get all of that off with this nail bit. But also make sure to be very careful that you don't hurt yourself. Again, I keep my drill bits at the lowest setting. Once we get all of that off, I go in with my buffer bit. And this bit just helps to get off all that shine, to make sure that that gel has something good to grip to. Buff all of your nails nice and good. And also at this time, I make sure if I didn't get a perfect shape with that hand file, I can reshape with this bit as well. But I do that very lightly to make sure not to mess up any of that perfect shape that I got, just to make sure I get it nice and perfect. Make sure you always wipe off the dust, because if not, it will stay there and it will end up in your gel and will cause bubbles and bumps. Don't skip this step. And wipe off your surface as well. Taking our bonder. Again, I do 2 layers of this before putting on a base coat. going in with my base coat, I make sure not to touch the edges of my skin, because if I do touch the edges of my skin with this gel, then the next layer of gel that I apply on top will end up sticking to that, and it will just look like a messy 5-year-old painted your nails with gel, and we don't want that. Then I take my nail polish and I mix in with some pigment to get this color. I actually filmed this step, but I ended up losing that footage, sadly. If you guys want to see how I do that, please comment that down below and I will get you guys a video on that. But basically, just paint your nails with your gel, and make sure you do this very carefully and don't get any polish on your skin. This is what makes it look very professional. The great thing about gel is that it does not dry until you put it under that light. So it will sit there perfectly fine until you put it under there. And I did get a little bit of polish on my skin, so here I am wiping it off with a little brush dipped in alcohol. I like to do 2 layers with each polish, and with each layer I nuke it under the light for 30 seconds. And then when I'm finished completely painting each nail, I put it back under the light for 60 seconds total. And that's it. That's how I do my nails. So I ended up adding some rhinestones and a bit of nail art, and here's how they came out. I hope you dolls enjoyed this video. Please give me a like, a comment, and subscribe if you're new. And stay tuned for my next one. Love you, dolls.